Today's stream is about the roots of intrapersonal conflict. And that's a very broad topic, but I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things that I always talk about, which is personal autonomy or personal responsibility. So if you go all the way, way, way back, if you go to YouTube and look at my very first live stream ever, I use an acronym called AOA, and it stands for Awareness, Opportunity, and Action, right? So it's what I'm becoming aware of what's going on, and I'm looking for an opportunity and owning the situation. So opportunity and ownership, and I'm taking action. So accountability has been kind of the core of the coaching modality that I've just kind of learned and built along the way. And so, in saying that, what is autonomy? I have kind of a personal definition I came up with, and I really kind of I think it comes a lot out of cognitive behavioral therapy, of a lot of what I've been studying lately. But I would define it as the freedom to choose and shape our future, and the freedom to not be negatively impacted by other people's decisions. So we have our own personal freedom and autonomy, and we also have the power to exert boundaries around, our own life and how we could be affected by other people's stuff. Now that's pretty broad and deep and perhaps a little bit cerebral. I've been accused of being a little intellectual. But what I mean by that is you have to be willing to understand that you have the freedom to be who you want to be and to do work you find meaningful, to apply your skills in a useful way to build your purpose and your mission in life. And you have the authority in yourself to go after that. Now, I'd make a moral case for the fact that it needs to make a positive impact into the world, and if it's based in selfishness and greed, it won't get far. But if you're looking to make some impact in the world, learning to be autonomous and learning to take responsibility for most of all, not just our actions, but our mindset, because everything begins in mind. It all begins in attitude. So, in saying that, two other concepts that you'll see in psychology is that when it comes to development as a human, like human development from child to adolescent to adult, you'll hear of individuation, which means you've been through the influence of your parents and your community, and you've grown, and now you've detached and you've become a functional autonomous adult. If you struggle early on, which everybody does, there's some dysfunction in all families, let's just be honest. Where there's humans, you're going to find some conflict and some problems. If you struggle a whole lot, some people are not able to individuate. They're not able to really grow into a whole and complete being that has what I call a bedrock of self-esteem. It's like if you've ever looked at foundation issues, or if you've looked at a house that's sinking, if there's not a bedrock, if the foundation wasn't laid appropriately, it will shift over time. And so if you don't completely individuate and grow and learn to have your own foundational self-esteem, you will struggle your whole life because you'll look for it everywhere else. You'll need it through validation, at work, through your sexuality, through dysfunctional relationships, through friendships that are one-sided, just through all sorts of ways. I say not having self-esteem and being a highly traumatized person is sort of like living life without skin on. You're always affected by everything. And so one of the first things I want to do as a coach and a counselor is take an assessment of where we're at. How much does other people's BS affect you? Because a lot of what I hear right now is with these long-winded boundary settings things of, oh, if you do X, I'll have to do Y. And what I like to tell people, and this could be a man thing, boundaries are just, they're implied. If I walk up to a restaurant that I thought closed at 10 and they're closed at 9 and I pull and the door's locked, oh, they're closed. That's implied. No one has to tell me that. So looking at if you have good people with good boundaries who grow and individuate, their boundaries are implied, so they don't often find themselves being the eye of a hurricane around a lot of dysfunctional stuff. They tend to not hang out and stay and work in toxic environments. They look around and they say, I'm better than this. I'm not going to put up with this. And they leave, right? So in the context of individual psychology, we would call that individuation. In the context of marital counseling, you call that differentiation, meaning you each have both have good lives. You both have hobbies. You both have friends. There's a lot of different takes on marriage therapy right now. There's the attachment theory, there's the Gottman Institute people, but there's sort of an older model that would talk about differentiation. They would say the happiest couples are people who are happy unto themselves. They're solid people as individuals, and because of that, they're sort of like free agents, and coming together, what they are is more than the sum. Like there's the sum of them is more than themselves individually, but they're whole and complete as individuals, right? And there's you kind of get better at relationships as you grow, and you just some life wisdom. But another thing I want to talk about is there's often, if you don't have good boundaries or you don't have autonomy, you will fall into a victim mindset. I've been talking about victim mindset for 4 years. Or in other ways, some people will externalize that. If you have someone that you're around that's very angry a lot, or they're an externalizer or a projector, instead of a victim mindset, they'll still have that, and they'll cover that with a very crass attitude. Everything's about someone else, right? Or other people are a little bit more functional. They might be avoidant. Oh, there's some problems over there. I just work here. Everything's fine. The house is on fire, but everything's fine. And then there's the hardcore empaths that have no boundaries. They're like functional amoebas. Their anxiety is crazy, and they're always trying to fix people. And look, dude, I've said this a million times. People are not projects you can fix. You need to focus on yourself. And oftentimes, people who are fixers have a lot of baggage in their own life they're too afraid to look at. And by fixing other people, I don't have to look at all the dog shit and the stuff in the corner of my own house. I don't have to have my own affairs in line. So what we want to talk about when we're talking about the roots of conflict is, if you've not done enough work in your life to sort of ascend into more of a holistic mindset and become an autonomous, free agent individual where you're a whole and complete person, unto yourself, and you don't need anybody else to validate that. All of us need that sense of community. We need to know we're okay. We need to feel like we're attractive or lovable, smart, intelligent, useful, skilled, competent. But we have to have our own foundational validation and our own self-esteem. And if you don't have that, I want you to take out your insurance card and look up a counselor and start working on that, or contact a coach, or contact someone like me that's working with people and start working on that. Work on that foundational stuff. Quit focusing on other people, because I'm telling you right now, if you don't have your own good source, a wellspring of love for yourself, and I don't mean in like a dysfunctional way, like everybody talks self-love. No, if you just don't have a certain amount of respect and autonomy within your heart, and say, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, I'm lovable, I'm a great person, I have a lot to offer this world, don't bother looking for a promotion. Don't bother trying to scale your career, because I promise you it will be so hard for you because you don't have your foundation in place. You've got to have the bones and the foundation and the sort of rough plumbing of good quality self-concept to move forward in life. And if you'll focus on that, you'll be able to accomplish things in marriage, and professionally, in relationships, and in life twice as fast. In sales, they'll talk about disqualify early. And what they mean by that is find out if the person's in your price range and wants what you're selling, because if you're not, you're wasting time that you could be selling to someone else. So disqualify early. So for what I'll finish up here today, when I talk about the roots of interpersonal conflict, is make sure you have your own house in order. Because if you don't, you're going to go out in life and it's like glue. You are just going to attract people, I say, with your own brand of crazy. And we all have some crazy, man. No one's perfect. There is literally not a perfect human being on planet Earth. And we all need to work on that sort of humility to learn that. But just know that when you have a lot of conflict, it's usually because people are not okay unto themselves. And if you don't have good boundaries and you don't have a good self-concept, there will just be this ping pong of I'm the victim, you're the bad guy, I'm angry. There'll be outbursts, there'll be anxiety, there'll be avoidance. It won't work. You've got to learn to be a free agent to yourself and know that I am lovable. I am a child of God. I'm a child of this universe. I'm okay as I am. I have room to grow, and I'm going to start working on that growth journey. There's no shame in that. And I'll talk directly to the men right now. Look, 80% of mental health professionals are women. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm trying to fill that gap of the 20% of dudes who are trying to get men into the fold. Because vulnerability isn't a weakness. You know, most men are not going to do any kind of therapy or want to do anything until they're in crisis. And I hate to break it to you, fellas, but it's better to do it before you get into crisis, because then you can enjoy the spoils of what it's like to have your marriage intact and to have your career growing and to be on a career path and using your skills in a way that just lights you up. And when you're able to do that, life feels great. No matter where you're at, if you feel hopeless, if you feel unheard, disrespected, emasculated, get some help. So, in saying that, I hope this was a good stream for you. Just to sum it up, I'll put this on YouTube. I'll probably do some more videos on this. The roots of all intrapersonal conflict starts with you. And it starts with you not having your own foundational self-esteem, not having your own boundaries, and not having agency over your mind and your attitudes. And that puts you in conflict with the rest of the world. Thanks again. Adam Stevens, coaching counselor from St. Louis. Go to my website. Check me out. Thanks for tuning in.